Welcome to Glasgow Rangers Nation with me, your host, Owen James, your channel, your Rangers channel, the channel that brings you all the latest news, and we don't even charge you for it. So, hey, smash that sub. What you got to lose? Well, we're going to talk a little bit about that game last night, how Rangers really got their season up and running with a very good performance out in Kiev. We'll talk about some of the key points from that and some of the key players from that and how that hopefully will influence the season going forward. Look, I'm not saying that it glosses over all the cracks. There are still cracks there. There are still things that need to be done with this team. We do need Champions League football so we can follow signing path A rather than signing path B. More of that later. And we've also got some of the latest up-to-date news on the Manchester United youngster Hannibal and his possible move to Glasgow. So we're going to start off by talking obviously about last night's game. I think, when we all sat there, at about 6 o'clock, we looked at the team that had been selected. We kind of were just a bit like, oh, okay. I think overall, there was trepidation going into this tie. Of course, there was. The team was one of them, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And the other one, obviously, was the whole situation of Dinamo Kiev, the way they'd come into this tie. They'd beaten Partizan Belgrade 9-2 on aggregate. It wasn't like it was some, non-existent team like, some team from the Faroe Islands or from Iceland or from wherever, or from, out of Mongolia. It was a real proper European team in Partizan Belgrade. I think, a lot of us perhaps expected Dinamo to be a lot better than they actually were. Now, I'm not saying for a minute that Dinamo Kiev were a bad team. I don't think they were a bad team. I thought they were quite a decent team, if I'm being honest. I think what made them look not a great team was our performance. I think, overall the performance was a hell of a lot better than we saw on Saturday. It was the first start of elements of really pushing what we want to see from this team, and also I think what Philippe Clement wants to see from this team. There was a very good high press. There was a very good, aggressive forward momentum to the team. The way we moved the ball was a lot slicker and quicker, and I think that all sort of, stopped them from playing out. And whenever they were trying to play out from the back and use the width, we pushed onto them, we pressed them, we pushed them back, and we stopped them from playing their fluid, fast attacking style of football they like. So I think, that's the first thing that had caused trepidation was what they'd done. I think the second thing, obviously, was the team selection. I think, when we all sat there at 6 o'clock and we looked at this team, I think, I think you'd be lying to yourself if you sat there and looked at this team and thought, yeah, that's the team that's going to do it. That they're going to smash Dinamo Kiev tonight. I think you'd be perhaps drunk if you thought that. I think there's a lot of us sat there and we thought, oh my God, that's awful. That's really not good at all. There's a lot of weak links in that team. And look, I think I was equally to blame, and I had a right rant on the breaking news podcast of the team news. And look, I thought they did very well. I thought 10 of those players did very well in that first half. 10 of those players, tried hard. They followed the manager's plan. They followed the manager's tactics, and to some extent, they worked. I thought Scott Wright was absolute dross. If I'm being honest, to be honest with you, by the time I got to half time, I think one of the commenters on the live stream said about taking Scott Wright off, and I'd actually forgotten Scott Wright was even on the pitch due to the fact that he'd done absolutely jack all. I know he played on the left-hand side, and I think, Ridvan was very poor in that first half, but I think to blame Ridvan solely, and I think some of the criticism that I've been reading on social media, and I know Rangers social media is a very toxic place, and also some of the criticism in the media of Ridvan's performance is very unfair. Yes, Ridvan was to blame for the goal. He gave the ball away, but he was, there was still Suter, Balogun and Tavernier there. Suter plays them all on side. Tavernier doesn't even bother tracking the man back. Yarmolenko is allowed pretty much a free run into the box. If you watch Tav just jogging behind him, it's disgusting. So look, overall, the whole defense was to blame, but the fact that Yarmolenko and I think was the guy called Sabadayev, I can't remember what the other guy was called, the right back, what was his name? He was called Karayev. That was the guy. They had the freedom of the whole right hand side of the pitch against Rangers, and I think a lot of that was because Scott Wright didn't track back, because Scott Wright didn't cover him, didn't help him out at all. So I think that criticism was very unfair of Ridvan. So I think the team selection did cause some trepidation. But I've got to say, and I've got to say beyond the shadow of a doubt, that this man deserves a massive amount of praise for the way that he changed it. And I think, as a manager, as a coach, when you make changes, you make them to have an impact. You don't just make them to give everybody a game, or because you feel sorry for someone because they haven't had a lot of minutes, or because you want to give somebody some minutes. You make a change because you want them to go and influence and change the game. You want to change something that is happening and improve something that is happening on your pitch. So for me, Clement did that, and he did that with every change that he made over the game. I mean, the first and the biggest one, obviously, for me was taking off Scott Wright at half time, who, like I said, I'd forgotten was even on the park. I thought that Hefte looked absolutely superb as a left winger. I mean, I think there's been some doubts over his defensive abilities as a left back, but I think as a left winger, he looked very, very good indeed. You know, in that second half, Yarmolenko and Shaparenko and Karayev had just nowhere to go. There was no. They didn't attack as well. Ridvan looked a lot more comfortable. That the whole right hand side of the pitch was much more closed down by the fact that Hefte was there in front of Ridvan. Not only that, he was more of a threat going forward. He delivered some excellent balls into the box. He was very, very good indeed. Some of the crosses generated good chances. He looks a very talented left winger, and that is a position I would like to see Hefte continue in. I think that's something that that he could really have a positive influence. And look, I'm not saying he's as good as this player, but Gareth Bale started life as a left back and was converted into a left winger whilst at Tottenham, and I think we saw how good he became. And part of Bale's quality was his lightning fast speed as well as his skill, obviously. Now, I'm not saying for a minute that Hefte is as good as Gareth Bale, but he was a player, Gareth Bale, who had an attacking sense and a defensive sense from the fact that he had previously been a left back. So, what I'm saying here really is that I think Hefte has to be given a run and on the left wing. I think starting against Motherwell on Saturday and then again against Kiev on Wednesday next week. We really do need to see. I think Hefte given a run. I thought he was absolutely excellent. I thought he changed the game when he came on. And that was down to Big Phil's change. I thought the change of Tierney as well was very good. I do think Ross McCausland played well, was unlucky not to score with that shot that hit the post. I thought Tierney did very well. I mean, Tierney laid that goal on an absolute plate for Cyril Dessers. Absolute plate for him. I mean, yes, it was a very good finish by Cyril Dessers, calm, composed, good finish, but it was really made by the ball from Tierney. It was a brilliant ball in. Dessers puts the ball in the back of the net. Well done, Cyril Dessers. I don't want to be criticised for not praising Dessers, but you've got to also praise the ball in by Tierney. And I think some people are kind of just doing the whole, it was Dessers, he was brilliant, just to try and get back in some people's faces and to perhaps get back at me a little bit. But you've got to also praise Tierney as well for the ball in. It was an absolutely superb ball in. To Dessers, brilliant ball in, laying it on an absolute plate for Cyril Dessers. So, it was a superb ball. It was a good finish. Let's just deal with that. I have to say that I thought Big Leon was absolutely outstanding tonight. I mean, I thought John Suter was very wobbly. Didn't rate Suter's performance at all tonight. I thought him and James Tavernier were very poor. But I honestly thought that Balogun was absolute class at the back. He was the leader. He organised. He tackled. He blocked. He chased back. He distributed the ball exceptionally well. He was... Look, I've got to say, look, I'm biased. I love Big Leon. I absolutely adore Big Leon. He's one of my favourite players because he's a Rangers man through and through. He loves the club. He bleeds red, white and blue. And tonight, I thought he was absolutely superb, and I think he deserves a massive amount of praise for what he did. I thought Connor Barron was very good as well. Unlucky to have to come off. Worked his socks off. Not brilliant. I mean, not talking about he wasn't amazing, but he was very good tonight. He tackled everything that moved. He distributed the ball well. He was always demanding the ball. He always wanted the ball. His first thought, if you watch him, is when he picks it up, is to turn, look forward. Who wants it? Where am I going to put it? Very, very good indeed. Real, quality performance. I also thought Mohamed Diamande was very good tonight. He covered every blade of grass. He tackled back. He distributed the ball superbly. He played forward. I think he linked very well with Václav Černý, and he linked very well with Hefte as well. When Rangers had a bit more attacking threat about them once, McCausland and Wright had gone off. So, Dio, and I think he's had some criticism as well, on some of the social media platforms I've read. I think some people don't really get Dio and don't appreciate what Dio does in the team. I think there was one moment in the first half where he's got the ball and he's coming across the pitch and he's yelling at Scott Wright to run in behind if he's going to put the ball over. But Wright just kind of stands there and looks at him like, and Dio is forced to play the ball off, I think, to Lawrence or someone else. And then you can see Dio going absolutely mental at Scott Wright, absolutely losing his shit with him. Dio is a leader. He's fast becoming a leader on that park. And that's what we need. We need a new leadership group, and that can be young players as well as experienced players. So, that was encouraging. I think Dio is kind of like a generally directs things. He runs things. I thought he did very well tonight. Look, I think we'd have all taken that. I think if I'd said to you, at 7 o'clock just before we kick off, 6:59 just before we kick off, 1-1, want to take it? You'd take it every single day. This tie is so poised now. It's all to play for in that second leg. And, we've got to bring the noise to Hampden, like Philippe Clement said. It's not Ibrox, but we've got to bring that same atmosphere, that same noise to Hampden. And, I think overall, this performance tonight was a very, very good performance. Okay, there was a lot of elements still to improve there, but it's moving in the right direction. And that's what we've got to take from this performance tonight, that there was a sense of direction. There was a better press. There was a better use of the ball. There was some nice intricate moves on the edge of the area. There was the one that led to the Lawrence chance, that then led to the Dessa's chance, obviously, that in the first couple of minutes. And the McCausland little shuffle inside. There was some nice bits of play. And that's what we've got to move forward with. And we've got to go into that second leg. We've obviously got to continue on its Motherwell first. But then into that second leg, bring the noise, bring that similar type of performance, get the team selection right, Big Phil. And then we'll obviously, I honestly can see us progressing. I can see us getting through this tie to the next round. And as I said on the live stream, and I don't want to get too far ahead of myself here, but I don't think the Red Bull Salzburg and Twente are anywhere near as good as PSV were last year. So, there's everything still to play for in terms of qualifying for the Champions League. Now, I know one question I have been asked a lot on this podcast and on the lives and everything else that I've done is about the whole situation around Hannibal Mejbri, the young Tunisian midfield player for Manchester United. Now, according to reports down here in England, and bits and pieces I picked up from some Man United sites and Man United fan sites and some mates of mine who are Man United fans, Hannibal is fed up of being a substitute. He's fed up of being on the bench. He wants starting minutes. He wants to play football. And I think he's come to the realization that he's got to leave Manchester United if he's going to do that. I mean, you look at that Manchester United side, you look at the fact that they're still spending money, they're recruiting, they're interested in Adrian Rabiot, they've got Casemiro, they've got, who else have they got? Bruno Fernandes, they've got, some real class acts, Garnacho in that team, who can all play in those midfield roles. And I think, you look at Hannibal, and as good as he clearly is a very talented player, that perhaps his attitude in the past has held him back. He's not going to break through into the Manchester United team. I think if anyone is going to break through into Manchester United's team this year, it's Amad Diallo, who has been absolutely outstanding for them. It really is disappointing that it didn't work out for him at Rangers. But, realistically, Hannibal is not going to be a Manchester United player, I don't think, for much longer. Now, apparently Rangers wanted a loan with an option to buy. Manchester United apparently want to sell. That's the issue. Now, the offer, the money, the salary, the transfer fees that have been bandied around are much lower than the 17 million that Sevilla had as a buyout clause for him back in when they signed the loan deal in January. It's thought to be somewhere around about 7.5, 8.5 mil. Now, Rangers are not really in a position at this moment in time to move for Hannibal. I don't think there's the funds. We know that very much at the moment we operate a policy of one player in, one player out. If Cantwell or Hadji were to leave, or both of them were to leave, that may generate the cash to be able to pay for Hannibal. But at this moment in time, we really aren't in a position to be able to buy him. And with the desire of Manchester United to sell him rather than loan him, it puts us in a difficult position. Now, according to the press in Manchester and in Scotland, but, a lot of the press around Manchester United, and there's a fair few people, that work for Manchester Evening News and others around there, the Manchester fan sites, that do know a lot of what goes on at the club. Now, you're not going to like this, and I apologise ahead of saying it, but according to the reports down here in England, Celtic are now the favourites to sign Hannibal. The reason being that they obviously have a lot more money than us at this present moment in time, but the other reason being that it's been reported down here in England that Matt O'Reilly is possibly moving to Brighton and Hove Albion for around £30 million. Now, if this was to come off, it's 30 million plus add-ons apparently. Now, Brighton as a club, that's what they do. They buy players, they sell them on. That's how they work. Now, obviously, if this move were to come off, it'd be generating 30 million, and they would be looking for a player to fit into that midfield alongside Hatate and McGregor. Hannibal, they feel, would be the perfect replacement for O'Reilly. So it's very much a case that if O'Reilly is going to leave, that Celtic would move for Hannibal. That's why at this moment in time, it's seen that they are very much in the driving seat when it comes to acquiring Hannibal from Manchester United. Certainly as well, former Manchester United player Andy Cole indicated as much when he was interviewed as well by Manchester United's in-house TV station. So look, it's not great news. I mean, look, I would love Hannibal to come to Rangers. Of course I would. He's a very talented footballer. He's a very able footballer. He's someone I think could make a huge difference. And, as a club, we do need a 10 or another 8, someone to play in there, in front of or alongside Dio and Barron. I think that would make a huge difference. And I think Hannibal is the sort of player who would make a massive difference at this club. But I think financially, we're just not in the position at this moment to move for him. And that is sad and that is worrying, especially obviously if he makes the move across the city to them. So, that's where we're up to. I know a lot of you have been asking. That's what I found out from talking to Manchester United sources, from reading bits and pieces in the Scottish media, from talking to some of the Manchester United fan site guys, from talking to different people around the football world, from reading stuff down here. That's where it seems to be up to with the Hannibal deal. So, look, that's where we're at. And that's not great, is it? It's not brilliant. Look, this transfer window is still open. It's open now for the 27th, so the 7th day, 23 days. So for the next 23 days, I think there's still a need for Rangers to recruit. We've seen that. We do need to bring in more players. We do need to bring in more talent. But hopefully over the next few weeks, we'll start to see the market move a little bit more. That we'll be able to move some players out and then bring some players in. Guys, let me know what you think of the stories we've covered. Let me know what you think of last night's game. Obviously, as well, please smash that sub, help the channel to keep on growing. And as always, as I always ask of you, please, on the way out, smash that like. And remember always, we are the people.